This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Breaking Banks podcast, this special series, Breaking Payments. And today we bring you episode 132, powered by Payoneer. My name is Megan Johnson, one of your co-hosts of Breaking Payments. And today we're going to touch upon a very, very, very important, interesting, and exciting topic. And that is everything to do with SMBs and what do they need to serve their customers better. And today is going to be a super fun and engaging episode because I am joined by James Alam at Payoneer and Shanae Malbin over at Fiverr. So thank you so much to our guests for joining. And I will hand the mic over to James and Shanae to introduce themselves and tell you a bit about what they're up to at their respective companies. So Shanae, let's get it started with you. Who are you? What are you up to at Fiverr?
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm from Fiverr. Fiverr is a global marketplace for digital services. We serve buyers and sellers from all around the world, offering digital services, all kinds of voiceover, music editing, logo design, whatever you can think of with a digital aspect. I've been with Fiverr for 6 years. I joined 6 years ago in order to set up all the payments infrastructure for Fiverr. And today we're processing payments in 23 countries, 23 currencies. We, of course, take pay-ins from buyers and distribute funds to our sellers. And in the past year, I'm also the general manager of Fiverr Business. Fiverr Business is the platform that we're now building in order to serve small, medium businesses on the B2B space.
Cool. Thanks, Shanae. I mean, I remember, Fiverr's been around for quite some time, and I think it's, really exciting to talk about kind of, one of the pioneers in this creative marketplace, because we all know, the creative industry is really taking off, and there's lots of exciting things in the fintech and payment space that are actually now trying to make the lives of creatives and SMEs easier. So excited to chat more. So cool. Thank you. And James, who are you? What are you up to at Payoneer? Who are Payoneer?
Hi, Megan. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So, yes, I'm James Alam. I manage the European region here at Payoneer, which is an interesting kind of portfolio of about 45 countries, from Ukraine in the east through the Central and Eastern European countries and EU countries up to the UK in the northwest. And then we also have Israel within our region. And really what we do at Payoneer, we're a global payments company, and our real mantra is to enable our customers to get paid and pay out locally. And our customers are typically small and medium-sized enterprises. And some of the areas we might touch on today are really about some value-added services that we're introducing to help our customers grow, really as a result of the trends of the last few years.
Nice. I think that's a really good segue into the first talking point, which is all about the trends and really what's happened in say, the last 5 years in the e-commerce space. So I think it'd be good to talk about, what we were seeing in terms of trends before the pandemic and, what were the biggest trends during the pandemic. What were some of the catalysts in the growth of e-commerce, and kind of bring that all together and setting the scene for where we are today. So James, would you like to kick off?
Sure. So pre-pandemic, so just over 2 years ago, I think it was under 18% of sales were made from online purchases. And this year's 2022, that number is expected to reach about 21%. So that's almost an 18% increase in e-commerce market share in just over 2 years. And the growth is expected to continue, reaching almost 25% by 2025. And really what we saw with the pandemic is that it further accelerated long-standing trends of digitalization and globalization. Exporting goods and services is ubiquitous, and it's never been so critical for businesses of all sizes and verticals and geographies to sell online in their region and the global market. And perhaps another point worth making is that SMEs have a lower barrier to entering new markets and expanding internationally now that the world seems more connected. And it's kind of created a more connected ecosystem.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think another really interesting point, like I think about my parents, and my parents actually started like a small e-commerce business during the pandemic as well. You know, like their first time ever stepping into the world of e-commerce and entrepreneurship. So I think it's definitely interesting. While, you know, there's been an 18% increase in sales, but I think definitely the breadth of customers engaging in the space is something that's also grown. Sinead, what are you seeing in terms of trends? What were some of the big catalysts during the pandemic? Where are we today?
So I think the shift to e-commerce was happening long before the pandemic. We've been monitoring and, of course, serving this trend for years before that. The pandemic definitely accelerated the move from offline to online. Lots of businesses and entrepreneurs understood that in order to continue and survive the pandemic, they will have to base their online presence and open the stores and use all the services that we have online in order to continue to sell and not stop their business. So we saw during the pandemic a lot of small businesses like a pizza place in Nashville opening an online store, starting to send their pizzas all over the world. It was amazing to see. We have a lot of services like drop shipping, social media, that the need for them became more and more necessary. So I think even now, after the pandemic, we don't see any stop in that. And I think it will continue, as James said.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, now that we're kind of, I guess, done with the pandemic, I don't want to jinx anything, but I think it will be, you know, interesting to see to what extent do businesses go back to kind of the offline space? Will they operate a hybrid model? James, what are your thoughts? What can we expect kind of going forward? And what in particular, you know, how does this, with the kind of view of you know, the SMEs? So, you know, the pizza company in Nashville, what's likely, you know, how are they going to be operating going forward? Will they completely leave the e-commerce space, or is that kind of here to stay?
I think it's very much here to stay. I mean, we've never seen so many entrepreneurs open a business as we have done in the last couple of years, and that's set to continue. There's a huge motivation for these guys to have freedom with their own business. So companies like Payoneer, the mindset we try and get into is how do we support them at every stage of their journey? So yeah, we're very committed to that, and we expect more digitalization and more globalization over subsequent years.
Yeah. And Sinead, what were some of the challenges like new customers, new SMEs faced when kind of shifting into the e-commerce space during the pandemic? What were some of the barriers that they had to overcome? And how did you, and also James, how did Payoneer help kind of get them up to speed with now having an e-commerce online presence?
So I think the more small businesses that used to work offline and have a real presence needed to do the shift to the online world. There is a lot to learn how to build an online store, to market it, SEO, social marketing challenges, how to push your business forward. So this is a place where a marketplace like Fiverr, of course, can serve those small, medium businesses, allow them to find all the services that they need in order to build and maintain and sustain their online presence. As James said, I think it's this trend of working online, which is much more efficient for them, is something that is here to stay. Together and alongside with, of course, maintaining the offline business now that we are moving out of the pandemic, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. James, what about, would you agree, any other challenges?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find too many contrary views today. We've been working with Fiverr for about 10 years now. So we're very aligned, I think, in a lot of our views of the world. Maybe a bit more specific to what we're seeing is there's a need for a variety of financial services that are globally available and accessible. And really that innovative partners, so marketplaces like Fiverr and platforms and tech and payment providers kind of working in tandem can help succeed and reduce the complexity that cross-border commerce brings.
And I guess thinking about specifically, cross-border commerce and thinking about how increasingly connected the world is, where are some of the hot spots in the world that we're seeing significant growth in e-commerce? I mean, I always consider like Southeast Asia as one of the hot spots of e-commerce. Is that correct? Are there any other kind of markets that grew significantly in the past couple of years?
We're almost like a B2B2C provider. And we see in many ways that developed markets are catching up with the emerging world and not the other way around. So emerging markets and economies grow at unprecedented rates. So next to China as a leader, you have Vietnam, Korea, Japan, and India that are all following their path. So very much in the developing markets, we're seeing some acceleration.
Yeah. And would you say most of these, is there still like in these developing markets, is it more kind of cross-border payments, or is it still kind of domestic, or is it a mix between the two types?
What we see the main need is localizing. So bringing a global service local. So repatriating income. That's the kind of core of our business.
Yep.
How do we help someone maybe based in India that's serving a US customer repatriate that income in a timely and cost-effective way?
Yeah, definitely. And I guess from Fiverr's perspective, Shanae, where are some of the hotspots you're seeing in terms of growth within your marketplace?
So we basically focus on the US and other places like Germany, Canada, and France. We're currently not focusing on Southeast Asia, even though we understand it's a big market with a big potential. We're also looking at the UK, Australia, and the Netherlands as potential growth countries.
Yeah. And I guess, do you find big differences between these markets? I know that, a lot of the time we think of, doing business in Europe, but a lot of the time there's, nuances between Germany, Sweden, Portugal, Spain.
Yes, of course. We actually opened a localization team in order to understand the needs of each local market and to know how to address it, how to market in those markets, to find the right supply for those in those specific markets for their demand. So it's true that Europe is Europe, but each market we treat differently, and we have specific teams to deal with that.
Cool. And I mean, I think if we stay on the topic of kind of like micro e-commerce merchants, why are we seeing more and more people opening up businesses and becoming entrepreneurs? I think we can talk for quite some time about the creative economy specifically, but I mean, why now? Why are like my parents opening up an e-commerce website? Why is this such a big thing at the moment? Shanae, what's your perspective?
So I think the pandemic and moving to a hybrid model and the flexibility in work and the people that wanted more balance between their life and the work is something that became more apparent in 2021. We following the Great Resignation trend in the US. We understand that people want to be responsible for the time and responsible for the way they want to work. We did actually a survey that we conducted. We find out that 54 of HR professionals and hiring manager say that people are leaving their companies in order to start their own business and become freelancers, which is an amazing number. More small businesses were founded in 2021 since ever. So we understand that this trend is really strong. And Fiverr Business, actually, the unit that I'm leading, is exactly here to serve that trend. And allow businesses to operate online and to find what they need on our platform.
And do you think is it becoming easier then to kind of incorporate as a small business? Are there kind of other factors there that are making it easy? Like I've seen a few of the fintechs and SME neobanks I've worked with that really kind of try to make the incorporation aspect easier. Is that something you're seeing too, to also fuel this kind of, 2021 being the year in which the most SMEs were incorporated and created?
I think that marketplaces and platforms that serves those people that do make that move and open a store or online store is really allow them access to demand all over the world. It reduces all the barriers that they have to accept payment and distribute payments, and they give them all the infrastructure to grow their business. And once they grow it enough and they have their own brand and they're strong enough, they can actually, on top of what they're working on with marketplace, can open their own brand. So I think marketplaces are democratizing the access to those SMBs and to those people that wants to be on their own.
Yeah. Okay. James, anything else you want to add, kind of to the why now question?
Yeah, I very much agree with the point Sinead makes. Definitely there's a desire for freedom and independence. We see that within our customer base. We also see that as an employer. I mean, the most progressive companies pre-pandemic were talking about flexibility for working arrangements. Now the mindset is very much how you're going to make a colleague's life better. And that's where we need to be focused to kind of retain the top talent, because there are so many opportunities for people to work independently. And then if you look more broadly around financial services, I mean, the nice thing is that, at Money 2020, it's been a few years since everyone's been together. And since then, there's been a lot more kind of collaboration and partnerships. So, for example, we work with a lot of banks. We work with tax advisors. We work with marketing advisors. And combined with marketplaces like Fiverr, that really gives a bit of takes out some of the heavy lifting of going independent. So I think there's some of the kind of trends we've observed and try and participate in.
Yeah. And I guess, what are some of the early challenges that SMBs or freelancers have when they kind of decide to either, pursue this as a full-time career change, or maybe, something on the side for them? What are the big kind of challenges we're seeing at the moment, James, from your perspective?
I think really relating to the previous point that if you can find friendly partners and experts in the market, it's going to be a lot smoother transition rather than have to figure it all out yourself. So if you think back just a few years ago, going country by country would have been a heck of a lot heavy lifting, figuring out regulatory environments, figuring out banking relationships, figuring out a network of potential customers. And I suppose through working with similar businesses to Payoneer and Fiverr, you can access that global economy almost instantly with fairly trusted experts around and a bit of a template that you can make your own.
Definitely. And Sinead, the members of the Fiverr platform, what are some of the early challenges they're facing? And is there a big difference between the freelancer challengers and the SMB challengers?
I think both, the technology here serve the matching between the demand and supply. So the SMBs and the freelancer relying on the capabilities of the platform to do the right matching between the demand and the supply and bring the right customers to the right SMB. As James mentioned, selling globally is a big challenge for a business to do that on his own. When he's joining the platform that is connected to a supplier like Payoneer, the world is open to him. He can to buy and sell from any country in the world without a problem. We take all the heavy lifting for them. We make sure the money goes in. We make sure that the order is completed, that everybody's satisfied, and then we just distribute the funds. It's something that the small business doesn't need to be worried about. And going forward, I think platforms are already and will continue to get into the financial services to help those SMBs grow their business and have all the financial support that they would need in order to continue the business and grow it as they need.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely where we can see, embedded finance playing a super important role in kind of, making the lives of freelancers, creatives, and SMEs better. And before we go to the break, I just want to talk about kind of the importance of the marketplace. So, how has a marketplace like Fiverr been a catalyst? And what are the trends within these marketplaces? Is there a focus more on physical goods, or are we seeing marketplaces that are looking to serve like a very niche or specific kind of sector? Shanae, I'm going to hand that off to you as you're the marketplace expert.
So I think it was very common to sell product on those marketplaces and on platform, but we see, especially after the pandemic, lots of services that were consumed face to face are now being done over a platform and online, like courses, like yoga, like everything that is really used to be face to face. And this has opened up a door for all kinds of services that can join in the online space. Fiverr is, our specialty is digital services. So we provide a wide range of digital services. And this is something that the demand for it is endless, especially with the trend of going online.
Cool. Anything to add, James, on the importance of the marketplace and how they've been a catalyst?
I think there's some interesting proof points and data points in the market from the last couple of years now. So OC&C strategy consultants have talked quite a bit around the fact that online marketplaces are set to further undercut the offerings of historic retail names in years to come. Statista, I think they had a recent B2B commerce report that's showing the rise of vertical and more specialized marketplaces for B2B buyers and sellers. And Modern Retail recently reported that customer-orientated retailers and brands have been increasingly investing in third-party marketplaces. I think what we also see is part of the life cycles that most SMBs start their businesses in recent years on marketplaces and digital platforms. And then they look at whether they're marketplace sellers, hosts, content creators. They look at growing and building their brands and doing some stuff directly to consumers as well. So sometimes called D2C, and building a relationship with them. So there's quite a lot going on there, but this isn't the start of the journey. We're way on the journey now and seeing some really nice data points to validate the success.
Nice, super. Okay, so on that very positive note, we are going to go to a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to touch upon technology in this space, customer experience, buy now, pay later, of course, and how SMEs are accessing capital and what some of the trends in that space look like. So we'll go to a quick break and then we'll be back with part 2 of this Breaking Banks Payments episode, number 132, powered by Payoneer.
Let's talk about the future of payments. Your Breaking Payments exclusive series is here, and we are ready to showcase how fintech has deconstructed the payments industry and is rebuilding it seamlessly as an embedded experience for the client. Stay tuned for new episodes every month on Breaking Banks Europe.
And welcome back. So I want to kick off part 2 by touching upon the technology aspect. So what is the role of technology in marketplaces and more broadly in digital e-commerce? What are some of the key trends when we think of technology, and how has technology kind of made the lives of SMEs, creatives, and freelancers easier when selling in the world of e-commerce? Shanae, let's kick things off with you.
Okay. So the marketplace is built on algorithm, and the technology serves, as mentioned before, the matching between the demand and the supply. So we offer on the marketplace a lot of services, and customers not always knowing exactly what they're looking for and how to define it. So our role is to define the right algorithm, to find the right matching, so the customer will get exactly what he needs. So this is something that we invest a lot of it. We're implementing a lot of AI in order to support that. I think this is the main thing from technology perspective that we're serving right now.
Okay. And, a big trend I'm seeing is kind of using AI and technology to provide capital for SMEs. So whether that be through open banking technology or like personalized invoice advances, is Fiverr doing anything on the capital lending side of things for the members?
So we're definitely looking at it. We investigated and researched a lot how SMEs have access to capital and what are the companies that are out there to offer our freelancers. And we know that the old companies that rely on all models of credit line and giving credit to customers still rely on old rules. And for us as a platform that we have visibility on our freelancers, we know how their earning works, and we have a lot of data. And we know that we can serve them better. So we are looking at it and searching how we can service our best community of sellers to allow them to be able to take cash advances and pay them back with their future earnings. So it's something that we're building internally based on AI, learning their earning trend, and based on that, allowing them to take advances so they can enlarge their business, sell more, and then return the money back to us. So this is definitely something that we're looking at.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a very critical tool. I mean, definitely for the creator and the freelancer side of things. I think in previous research I've done, one of the biggest pain points is being paid on time. So anything to help alleviate that. Yeah, that pain point I think is very welcomed within the industry. And James, what about from your perspective? So from the payment side of things, how has technology provided any innovation when we think about payments in the e-commerce space?
So actually a very similar theme for us. I mean, we note that SMBs have a need for capital, so the same as consumers, and these marketplaces and ecosystems have enabled us to kind of be able to offer that as a non-bank provider. So businesses need access to capital to grow and invest, and it's much more than just refilling storage for peak seasons. It's about reinvesting in their businesses and overcoming supply chain issues and investing in advertising and selling on more digital channels and to get new customers in new markets and retain them. So paying for your business expansion can be quite overwhelming, and that requires ongoing cash flow. Therefore, they need capital. And I think as a result of these marketplaces and ecosystems and the technologies they employ, we feel in a much stronger place to be able to support them in this growth.
Super. And I think thinking, I guess, one step further and the whole kind of, the whole buy now, pay later space, I think, buy now, pay later has done a lot of things, I think, in this industry, one of which is really changing customer expectations on how they pay. So I know, for example, like Shopify they have a partnership with a firm, and they offer the SMEs on their platform the option to offer buy now, pay later to their customers. So we see it's not just something that, the big brands are offering their customers. James, what do you see kind of happening with the buy now, pay later space in terms of reaching the SME sector, freelancers? Do you think this is something will take off, or just will be mostly confined to the bigger brands?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Megan, I mean, the hype around buy now, pay later services in the customer world has reached a fever pitch, and it's fairly clear why. Buy now, pay later and other traditional non-traditional payment offerings make it easier for consumers to make larger purchases by splitting their payments into more affordable chunks and spread out over weeks or months. And that kind of flexibility isn't only suitable for cash-strapped customers, it's also incredibly enticing for small and medium businesses that might be struggling to manage their cash flow. And that's why we're hearing more and more rumblings about buy now, pay later and other flexible payment options in the B2B space also. So SMB really need lenders that understand their business model and able to provide an offering based on modern digital needs. And next to access to capital is also about secure payment services in uncertain times, so particularly during pandemics and wars. And we see a more connected world and more corporations and companies rarely competing, but more complementing each other now as a result.
Janae, any thoughts on from the Fiverr perspective? Are you seeing a demand from your members for this, or again, is it still something that's kind of still with the the larger companies?
So I think it's still with the larger company. We don't see much demand for that on our platform. We do see, of course, demand for the right payment method and the right currency, and people want to be able to pay with what they used to pay. But we don't offer today buy now, pay later. I guess it has to do, of course, with the average, selling price of each of our consumer. But also for the larger amount of transaction, we don't see much demand for that yet. So
okay. And I want to move on to kind of the trust aspect. What do SMEs need to have in place on their e-commerce website or the platform or in the marketplace to ensure there's a high level of trust when it comes to customers, shopping online, paying for a good or a service? What has to be there? And are there any kind of, interesting trends or tactics we're seeing in this space? Shanae, let's get the Fiverr perspective.
So trust is something that we see. It's a very important selling point on our platform. The more the freelance or the SMB that sells online has to bring a lot of testimonials and reviews and rating and a very rich portfolio that indicates the level of service that he provides, the more he has something to show, their selling will be higher. The algorithm will push him higher. So we see that the rating and the trust factors play a significant role in their selling and in their success in the platform. Definitely.
So that aspect of rating and validation is critical and kind of, ensuring that consumers know that this is a trustworthy platform. It incentivizes the members on the platform as well. James, anything to add from the trust perspective when we think about kind of payments and marketplaces?
Yeah, not really. Customers have very high expectations and they get more comfortable buying across borders. But these high expectations continue, and there's increasing focus on choice now. So customers expect a simple, secure, and frictionless experience, and across all stages. So whether that's actually on the web store, the shipping, or the payment, those expectations are applied.
Okay. And when we think about, how to make an e-commerce experience as frictionless as possible, I think a lot of the times we take this for granted. I've had some nightmarish experiences recently on e-commerce websites. But Shanae, what would you say is like the most critical component to create a frictionless experience within a marketplace?
I think it's very important for the customer, the buyer, when you reach the payment page, know exactly what he wants to pay with. If you offer a payment method that he's not familiar with, or if the payment page is not feeling secured enough, the transaction will not happen. So it's very important to match the payment experience to the local market that you sell to, the country of the buyer. He needs to see his currency, he needs to understand exactly how much he's paying. Everything's supposed to be transparent. If there are any taxes involved, it's supposed to be transparent and clear what the exact amount that you're receiving, and of course when he's supposed to get what he ordered. So everything's supposed to be clear. So the more the payment page is clear for the buyer in terms of the payment currency, the payment option, the time for delivery, if there's any taxes involved, the transaction will go smoothly.
Yeah. Okay. So transparency is definitely key then. James, what about from your perspective? What's the key for creating the most frictionless payment experience?
So we see consumers want choice in both how they pay and when, and they expect global commerce with local experience. So it's vital to offer an excellent customer payment experience. And if you look at something coming back to buy now, pay later, this isn't new. It's been around many, many years, but it's been hugely boosted through the digitization of commerce, and that's spread through Europe and US and now the world. That's just one example.
Yeah. Okay. Localization, local payment methods, being able to, order and pay in your local currency, as well as transparency, are the keys to providing that, frictionless experience, increasing conversion rates, which is super critical for, freelancers, SMEs, and of course, large corporates. It doesn't matter the size, you want to have that good experience. So thinking about, a multi-channel strategy, how should SMEs tackle kind of the omni-channel experience? Should they be focusing on mobile first, desktop first? And what are the key considerations when kind of starting off your business or what you're offering on a marketplace or an e-commerce website? James, let's kick it off with you, please.
So what we're told by our customers is that a unified experience across all channels is key, across multiple digital channels. But it also brings challenges of managing multiple payment setups that we try and solve. So this comes back to, I think, what I mentioned earlier about our mantra of to pay and get paid globally. So what customers like to do is consolidate all their funds across marketplaces and direct sales channels within our multi-currency accounts. And merchants can manage their accounts and payable needs and gain access to working capital and use their funds to pay business expenses such as digital advertising. So bringing it all under one umbrella, we find is the biggest ask from our customers.
Nice. Okay, that makes sense. And Shanae, from the Fiverr perspective, what's the most important?
I think it really depends on the product or the service that they are selling. In some categories, we see that they invest a lot in mobile because it's a quick sale and everything happens more quickly on mobile. And of course, you need to have mobile presence in order to win the game. But some categories, you have to be on web, you have to be on desktop in order to, define what are the requirements that you need. And so it's a more web experience. So of course the presence is supposed to be more web than mobile. So it really depends on the category and what exactly is being sold. Obviously, both are very important, but as I said, it depends on the experience when you're buying. If it can be mobile, of course, mobile first. But if not, you have to have a very good selling proposition on the web.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so we've touched upon a lot, customer experience, technology, trends, the importance of trust. And I'd like to wrap up with talking about what the future holds and what we can expect in 5 years' time and in 10 years' time when we think about the creator economy, freelancers, SMEs, offering their services, selling goods online, the role of marketplaces. Now that we're kind of moving out of the pandemic, what can we expect? What's the 1-2 things we should really keep in our mind when we think about the future of payments in marketplaces and in e-commerce? Shanae, what's your perspective?
So I think the world is going through a change, and this change is going to be even more deep. As we talked about hybrid model, people that wants to work for themselves, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small new businesses that are being opened. There's going to be a lot of a need for talent, free talent, and the marketplaces that offer freelancer services will rise in order to serve this demand, because companies will not be able to find talent as freely as they used to be, and a lot of people going to work for their own. So there's going to be need to find talent through those platforms. E-commerce, of course, going to continue to rise. Selling online versus selling offline. It's a whole new, different game in terms of expenses, and SMBs and companies want to operate on both spaces. So I think that this trend of going online will just continue, and the role of talents serving through platforms is something that's going to rise even more.
Great. It's going to be super exciting times, I think. And I'm a freelancer. I've been freelancing for quite some time, and it's amazing. And it makes me really happy and excited to see that so many other people now have this opportunity. James, anything to add?
Very much the same things. So we believe and we hear that SMBs need to serve different digital channels as well as marketplaces and platforms. So we see a little bit of interest at the moment around direct-to-consumer market area, and that's grown quite significantly during the pandemic. And it really comes back to, we need to give anyone, anywhere, the tools to build and grow a digital business, so whether that's the ability to pay and get paid, or the capital to grow their business to realize its full potential. And then to take it to the next stage, we're trying to keep these kind of value-added services coming and developing our products to offer SMBs even more simple ways to expand. So, for example, recently we announced Payoneer Checkout. So a bit more of the same, but very much around trying to serve the customer as best as possible and enable them to expand into the global market.
Nice. So focusing on kind of that, expansion as the world becomes even more connected. Sinead and James, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really awesome to talk about, all things marketplace, freelancers, creatives, SMEs, tips for success. And I think it's, clear from everything we've talked about, it's definitely taking off in a very exciting place to be. So thank you so much, Sinead. Where can people find out more about yourself and about Fiverr?
In our website, www.fiverr.com.
Okay, super. And James, Payoneer?
Payoneer.com or via LinkedIn. Happy to chat with anyone.
Cool. Okay, again, thank you both so much. And thank you to our listeners for staying tuned into Breaking Banks podcast, Breaking Payments episode 132, powered by Payoneer.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with FinTech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.